Hello, brothers and sisters. Blessed Lent to you all. Um, Yesterday was Ash Wednesday, and which marks the beginning of our Lenten journey, our Lenten adventure, our Lenten pilgrimage um, to to the cross with our Lord. And in yesterday's gospel, we hear about Jesus talking about the the famous and traditional Lenten practices that we as Christians, as Catholics, we engage in, fasting, prayer, and almsgiving. And I think for most of us, we kind of know what they are, right? With prayer, we during Lent we ought to try to spend some more time in prayer, and that doesn't mean we need to each spend 1 hour a day in the chapel, right? But maybe just carve out 5 or 10 minutes a day, either in the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of the day, or even on our commute to and from work or school to just rest in the Lord and check in with Him, because that's really what our Lord wants, right? Is for us to check in with Him so that He can check in with us to see how our life is going, how our spiritual life is, and what it is that we still need. Where are the where are the areas in our lives that we need to work on and improve? And in terms of fasting, oftentimes we speak as Christians. We speak of giving something up for Lent. What is it that we want to give up for Lent? And sometimes it becomes more of a challenge, of let's maybe it's weight loss or whatever it may be. But that's not really the spirit of Lent. Maybe for example, I really like iced tea, and that's one of my pitfalls is that I enjoy iced tea a lot. So something that I could do for Lent is maybe I would not drink iced tea at meals or something. And not just because I want to give it up, but because when I'm giving something up that I really enjoy and I take pleasure in, as simple as iced tea, and when I'm not allowed to have it, you know, it makes me think of, okay, what our Lord must have endured. What must He have suffered for us? What must He have given up? And what Mary have given up um, for for the truth, for God, for following the way, right? And that ought to stir up inside of us a spirit of gratitude, and also of a deep appreciation of how much God really loves us. And that's the meaning of fasting. Really, is not to give something up just because that's what we do, but rather to, in the absence of those things from which we derive joy, that we're able to come to appreciate God's love more deeply, and in turn share that love with others. So that's really the spirit of fasting. Finally, almsgiving. Almsgiving is helping the poor, helping the homeless, some sort of charitable activity, whether it be at the homeless shelter or donating to church, putting some money in the poor box, whatever it may be. Those are acts of almsgiving. It doesn't have to be, $1 million check, right? It could just be, I was going to go out for lunch today, but instead I'm going to donate that money to the poor. Simple, small acts of almsgiving. So those three disciplines that we as Catholics, as we as Christians, engage in during Lent, and all three of them really must be rooted in in God, in prayer, in our one-on-one relationship with God. Because without that, then they just become nice things that we do. But when it's rooted in the love of God, when it's rooted in prayer, when it's rooted in who we really are called to be, then it becomes meaningful. It becomes important, and it becomes, quite frankly, it helps us grow in virtue and grow in our discipleship and in our spiritual life. So those are those three practices, which really helps us to do what the prophet Joel told us that God says to us, right? Return to me with your whole heart. Rend your heart, not your garments, right? That's the greatest desire of God is for us to return to Him with our whole hearts. You know, in the Old Testament, the Israelites were, they fall off, right? They sinned. They made idols. The kings, they made pacts with foreign lands, foreign nations. And they no longer place God at the center. They no longer look to God for all that they need. So God, you know, in His great desire, say, return to me with your whole hearts. And that's what our Lord speaks to us today, yesterday, today, and throughout all of Lent. Is to return to Him with our whole hearts. And we can do so by practicing prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. By rooting ourselves in the love of God, in the mercy of God, we can truly return to Him. You know, slowly. It may take time, but it's what we as Christians are called to do during Lent. And in today's gospel, in the first reading in Deuteronomy, Moses sort of asked the Israelites, you know, you either choose God or you choose idols. You either choose life or you choose death. And brothers and sisters, we also need to make that decision. You know, whose side are we on? I mean, it's easy to say, well, of course I'm on the side of God. But do our lives reflect that? Do our actions, do what we say, what we do, what we think, do those things reflect the fact that we have chosen God? Or does it reflect more that we have chosen the world? That we have chosen something that's not God? And so I offer that point of reflection for all of us this week as we continue with our Lenten journey, you know, and these are the exact words that Moses says to the people. Today I have set before you life and prosperity, death and life. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I enjoin on you today, loving Him and walking in His ways and keeping His commandments, statutes, and decrees, you will live and grow numerous, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to occupy. Listen, that Moses puts what's first in that order. He says, obey the commandments by loving Him, walking in His ways, and keeping His commandments. Loving Him. Love. And Jesus in the New Testament tells us, what's the greatest commandment? Love God and love neighbor as yourself. So brothers and sisters, as we continue with our Lenten journey, this pre-first week of Lent, let us make that firm decision. Do we choose life or death? Do we choose God or the world? What is it that our heart would choose? And let us allow ourselves to really embrace the practices of prayer and almsgiving, so that we may really choose God wholeheartedly and return to Him wholeheartedly. This coming Sunday, the first Sunday of Lent, the gospel is always about the temptations of Jesus. And next time, we'll talk more about that. But until then, have a good pre-first week of Lent, and pray, fast, and almsgive, but always rooted in the love that God has for each one of you.